Hello, I'm Bill Ambler, an educator at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine. I hope you will look closely with me now at just one of the hundreds of stained glass windows we have here. In a cathedral like this one, modeled on those of medieval Western Europe, you might expect to see Christian saints in the stained glass windows. You will find plenty of those, but you will also find figures that recognize our great debt to people from other parts of the world and of other faiths. In fact, since its construction, St. John the Divine has looked outward to embrace people from around the world. Right now, we will focus on a window in the Chapel of St. James dedicated to the people of Spain. This is one of 7 chapels dedicated to the main immigrant nationalities arriving in New York around 1900 when these chapels were planned. Called the Chapels of the Tongues, they pay tribute to New York's historic diversity and the strength derived from it. Because the Chapel of St. James is dedicated to the people of Spain, in its windows you will find tributes to that nation's remarkable history. From the year 711 until 1492, which is to say for most of the Middle Ages, Spain's territory was divided between Muslim and Christian rulers, with a mix of Muslims, Christians, and Jews living throughout. While there was no shortage of conflict along borders, generally adherents of all 3 religions lived together amicably in convivencia, or coexistence, and scholars studied side by side to the benefit of all. If we look above the large figure of King Ferdinand of Castile, in the second lancet from the left, we see 2 bearded men wearing headscarves, one holding a large book. The scrolls floating in front of these figures identify their names as Avempace and Averroes. Known in Europe today as Averroes and as Ibn Rushd by his contemporaries, this 12th century Muslim scholar played an instrumental role in reintroducing Aristotle to Europe. Today, many consider Aristotle and Plato as the bedrocks of the Western intellectual tradition. But in fact, knowledge of both Greek philosophers had died out in the European Middle Ages. It was through the translations and commentaries of Averroes that Aristotle re-entered European thought. Avempace, known to his contemporaries as Ibn Bacha, was an 11th century Muslim scholar who also studied Aristotle, but today is best remembered as a pioneer in astronomy, whose influence persisted for centuries. Galileo Galilei acknowledged Avempace's importance, and in 2009, a lunar crater was named after him. Above the image of Bishop Leandro in the third lancet from the left, we see 2 more figures. Solomon ibn Gabirol on the left and Moses ben Ezra to the right were both highly regarded Jewish scholars in the 11th century living under Muslim rule. Gabirol composed poems and works of philosophy that reintroduced the ideas of Plato into European circulation, while Ezra's speculations about metaphor and rhetoric had profound influence on poetry in both Muslim and Christian Spain for generations. Cathedrals represent a pinnacle of medieval European civilization. But the figures in these windows remind us that ideas and influences flowed around the world then, much as they do today. European civilization flourished only because of rich intellectual cross-pollination in places like Spain, where people of many faiths and backgrounds worked and thought together. Thank you for joining me for this brief exploration of one component of this great edifice. We hope to see you at the cathedral soon.